this episode, I have an interview with the creator of a Mythras Dungeon crawl, and the rules guru surprises us all with another in-depth look at a requested rule. Welcome to the Mythras Matters podcast, Season 1, Episode 37, Getting Surprised in an Endless Maze. Hello and welcome to Mythras Matters, a podcast dedicated to the Mythras rule set and all its supplements. As always, I am your host inwils, and welcome to June. Now, I've been producing this podcast for some time now, over 3 years, but I continue to enjoy every moment of it, and it is through producing this podcast that I have had the opportunity to chat to some of the wonderful creative people in the Mythras family. I continue to learn more and more about the game, and this has really supported me in creating the rules videos that I create for YouTube. And one of those videos I create is an introduction to the Mythras rule set, which I hope might have lured some people into playing the Mythras rules. As well as the rules videos and of course our actual play videos, I am starting to diversify and to create some videos focusing on GM topics. I'm really enjoying producing these, and I'm going down the top 5 tips route for as many of them as I can. So far, I've done one of these for the essential GM skills, another one to spice up your journeys, and the one that's coming out in this month will be some tips when your players go astray. I think we have all, as GMs, had this moment in our gaming when we've planned for one thing and the players go off in a completely different direction. Having experienced this on several occasions, it has actually made me change how I create ventures now. There will be a video on my creation process coming soon, so do go and check out my YouTube channel. The link will be in the show notes. Before I play the jingle and move on to the next segment, I wanted to ask you all a question. We all remember the pandemic and not being able to leave our homes for a certain amount of time during lockdown. Well, during that time, many people moved their RPG sessions to virtual tabletops, and I was wondering whether anyone has kept using them or whether they have moved back to face-to-face games around a real-life table. In our group, we have some players from the United Kingdom, where I am based, and the others across the pond in America. So the virtual platform is really the only option open to us. But I was wondering if any groups have made that move to the virtual tabletop from face-to-face gaming. It would be great to hear your comments about this and which ones you prefer. And so why don't you head over to either the Discord or the Tapper Talk forums and let me know. Also, if you are brave enough, there is an option to record your feedback. The links to this are in the show notes. And anybody who records something, I'll play your answers at the end of the next episode. So, virtual or real life? Which do you prefer and why? I'm looking forward to reading and listening to your answers. I've mentioned before in many episodes that the Mythras community is blessed with some fantastic creators. Later on, we have the Rules Guru back with more rule explanation. But first up, we're going to talk with the creator of an excellent adventure module called The Maze of Mezeria. Over to you, Jason.
I'm Jason Duff, and I own Earl of Fife Games. I'm a designer and developer, and I do most of our layout and that sort of thing. Yeah,
fantastic. And is it Fife Games? Did you say?
It is. Yeah, Earl of Fife Games. Yep.
And what do they do? What do you just produce adventures for different systems?
I do. That is mainly what we have done so far. We do have some plans for our own system, which would be coming out in Kickstarter soon.
Fantastic.
But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely give me the link for that, and I'll put it in the show notes. So do you just play Mythras? Is that the game that you play, or
I play as many games as I possibly can. I kind of have always wanted to do that. Back in when I kind of first started with role playing games, and everybody was just playing D&D, and at the time, it was really hard to get anybody to play anything other than D&D 3.5, and I really wanted to do other things. I started playing a Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game and trying to get other people to do other stuff. Yeah. And then we kind of started an actual play channel. It's called Blades and Blasters, and that's what we have done, is try to play as many different systems as we possibly could, and then kind of rolled over into doing development of our own stuff too. So fantastic.
So what's your favorite system?
My favorite system. It's hard to say. I have a lot of favorites. I like the Conan 2D20 system. Yeah. That's one of my favorites. Mythras is a great system. And yeah, there's just right now, I think probably what I'm playing right now, I'm playing Paladin. It's like a Pendragon spinoff. So I really like that. And we're playing Twilight 2000, the new version of that. So
how many times do you play a week?
About 2, probably.
Wow. Yeah. We only have once on a Saturday evening, and we're currently playing M Space. I don't know if you know it, which is Mythras in space, which is fantastic. So I've got your module that came through via the Mythras Gateway, published via them. So tell us about your module. Tell us.
Well, the Maze of Mezeria is a little different than things I've seen released for Mythras. It is, I guess, what you could say a dungeon crawl. Only that it's not a real great descriptor of what it is. Yeah, it is a big dungeon. Well, not even that big. It's a dungeon, and the focus on it is kind of letting the players do what they like and presenting ramifications for what they do. It's a module where if they went the right way and did certain things, they could be out very quickly, if they want. But most players are tempted to explore. They're tempted to find out what's in that next door, what's around this corner. Hey, I didn't go that way, let's go back. And that actually punishes them in this module, and it's done on purpose, because it's like, well, you're in this place and you're walking around exploring through heavy ruins, and you're having to crawl over things, scramble over things, and long distances walking, and you're going to get tired, you don't have food, can you actually rest? And that's really kind of what it boils down to, is what risk are you willing to take in this place? And you might not get out right away because you might not go the right way, but you could go straight out and get out, right? There's no like ending boss, right? At the very end, there's one that kind of chases you around a bit, but that you could solve that pretty quickly if you wanted to, if you came into that area and you wanted to do that. So I
must say I would be totally invested in, because I was always, or still am, a map completionist. I want to, if there's an empty corridor on my map, I want to know what's down there, so I would probably be in the maze for some time. So what was the inspiration behind the adventure?
Well, I hadn't seen anything like it really. You see a big dungeon crawl, and you go and you solve puzzles, you negotiate around traps, and you fight things, right?
Yeah.
Which this has all that too, but I hadn't seen anything where it was like, okay, you're really punished for exploring. Really, it's quite the opposite of that in most actual mazes or dungeons that you see, right? You go and you get the loot, and you get where there's not a whole there could be, right? There's one, not to spoil things too much, but there's one section where there's a huge golden statue you can pick up and take with you. But it's worth a ton of money, but you know how heavy that thing is, and it compounds all the fatigue. And Mythras has a really good fatigue system to explore, and I felt that it was a really good idea to make people punished for carrying hugely, heavy things. So,
And I love the fatigue system in Mythras. I really do. And we even use it in combat, so and I think it really, the players have that urgency that they need to finish the combat as quickly as possible. Otherwise they're going to be, calling on Bartleby to remove their fatigue or, or to fill them with Amriel's power. So, it reminded me of the classic dungeon crawls, like you said. But as soon as I read it, I suddenly realized that it was a lot more than that, a lot more. And I really thought this is going to be interesting. So how easy do you think it would be to fit into an existing campaign or something like that?
I mean, I think it could, the way it starts out is kind of by happenstance, you fall into it, right? But it could be, I mean, you could end that anywhere, but it also could be, hey, you could kind of take that out and say, you need to go into this area to find something, and you could, or whatever the reason is, and you could put that at the end as well as, everything else. And I think it would be quite easy. And one thing I wanted to kind of discuss is like the difficulty can be scaled quite easily as well. If you don't want it as hard as it is now, which I feel it could be kind of difficult based on compounding fatigue, you can, instead of the way it speaks today is you go from this place to this place and you gain fatigue. There's no endurance tests or anything like that, but you could add those. You could say, well, you can make an endurance test, and if you fail, you gain fatigue, but if you succeed, you do not. Right. That sort of thing. Or and then you can just scale the difficulty of the skill checks too, and make it easier. So if you wanted to, or harder. So.
And I really liked how it was introduced, actually, because I suddenly thought one of these days I might not be prepared enough, and I just thought I can grab this, and they naturally fall through it when they're traveling from A to B, and it's a nice contained adventure for them. You talked about the skill levels and changing it at the moment? Do you think new players or new characters would be able to cope, or a bit of experience, do you think?
I think if they had a bit of experience, I think that would be best. But it really depends what they do. Even the most experienced characters, if they are walking around and they get to a fatigue level where they're totally,
comatose,
crippled, it's not gonna matter. It really depends on the choices they make. But if you want to make it easier, you definitely could. I think that it's probably set for a high level of difficulty for new characters. But I think that if you take if you take the right paths, and not even take the right paths, but like try to navigate it in a way that you're trying to find the exit, which I think is realistic. Like, I think if you and I were in a maze, we'd just be trying to get out, right?
Exactly.
So
very true.
So, but if you're looking to find every little thing, go every place, get everything you possibly can, I think it's going to be tough for new characters, for sure.
And I think when I was reading it, I thought I first of all will fall into that habit of trying to find everything and tick everything off. But as soon as I get the feeling of the fatigue and this is not supporting me, then I could actually see groups' decisions changing.
And that's what I've seen in playtest. That's what I saw in playtest, right? People they're like, okay, I'm going to go find this and that. And okay, there's a path this way, I'm going to go that way, and then they realize, oh man, I'm getting in trouble here. Right. And so, I need to actually try to find the exit. And that's what happened. The majority of the time, people realized that they were hurting themselves by exploring, and they tried to find the exit after that. So
I have to say, in the playtest, did any groups actually just get so tired that they couldn't get out? I've found there's 2 times that they got very fatigued and then ran into the Minotaur and then died.
That's what happened.
And it's going to be very difficult at that point with those fatigue levels. So what do we get in the module? What's sort of like in the package when we buy it?
So you'll get a 62-page adventure digest size. So basically you're getting 1 column. If it was A4, it would probably be like 40 pages. But you get that. You get it has 5 sections in the maze itself. There's a good blend of social encounters, combat encounters, and not so much puzzles, but traps in the maze. I think it has pretty high replayability for people who have not played it. If you have different players and you want to run them through it again, as a GM, you're not going to see the same thing every time, I feel.
Most definitely.
It really depends on what the players do. They have complete autonomy to do whatever they want. Once they're in there, they can, solve challenges different ways, I feel. And you'll get, if you do the, and really anywhere you buy it, you get a keyed map and an unkeyed map for the maze. In the PDF itself, you will get each section has a summary for quick play, and you can print that out separately, so you can just kind of look at it. I would suggest reading it and then printing that out, so you have it when you run it, so you don't have to look at through the text, or just have bullet points for you, however you would like to do that. Some people like brevity, so you can use that.
I thought it's really, some of it has really nice bullet points that is in the summary. So I can instantly see, and I really like how all the skill rolls are bold text. So you can see it straight away. Who did the artwork, because it's truly fantastic. The artwork.
Most of the artwork is from a guy named Yuri Marin. He does a lot of our stuff, and he does stock art as well. And most of it is him.
It really was. I love the digest version of it. So just for people who are listening, it's not sort of like a big A4 module. It's a lot better. And I really liked how it was set out. I just loved it, both in the actual real life copy, but in the PDF. And it's nice that the papers are not pure white, which I actually like.
It's like a beige background.
It's really nice, and I think it really adds. And the maps are brilliant. They're really clear, and there's a lovely key to it, so you can see exactly what's going on in each of the areas. So Where can we get it from?
You can get it digitally from our website at 5games.com or Drivethrurpg.
Yeah.
You can get the print-on-demand copy from Amazon.com or Drivethrurpg. If you get it from Amazon.com, please contact us at 5games and we'll send you the PDF for free.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where you can get it.
Yeah, and I'll put links to that in the show notes so people can check it out. I haven't run it yet, but I've seriously got it put to one side, ready to slip in. And just to go back to one of the other things about running it different ways in different times, one of the things that I really thought that I'm going to do is I like that it can be it's quite compartmentalized in little bits. And I thought I love some of the encounters. And if the party had not got to them or whatever, I really see me sort of like slipping them in.
You could.
You
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah. If they don't go to an area and you want to use it later, and, they're in some place, let's say you don't go to the armory, right? And this, and you can put that in something else, and then they go in there and they see all these mannequins sitting there, and then the mannequins come alive. And,
exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. So what are you working on next? What's next in the pipeline?
Well, I don't have anything in the Mythras pipeline, but we are going to run a Kickstarter for a system called Heroes and Hardships in the next couple months. And you can find out about that at 5games.com as well. So.
Fantastic. And just before we leave it, just some general questions. What sort of characters do you like to play?
I usually play kind of the brooding emo characters, I guess. I don't have either a magic user or a fighter. They kind of runs the gambit a little bit, but yeah, something like that usually are the characters in the play.
Brooding emo, I'll remember.
Right, there you go.
And finally, anything else that you would like to say about this fantastic adventure? I
just hope people like it, and I think you will get your money's worth with it, because it's a interesting, I think, turn and spin on kind of the dungeon crawl. And I think particularly for Mythras, there isn't a lot of that I've seen.
No, there isn't.
So I think if you have any interest in that in your games, you could slot it in just pretty much wherever you would like. And I think the ending allows for, if you want to develop something else for it, because it's not unfinished, but it's like there's a possibility that you could yourself as a GM kind of do something with it and have it like connected to your world and your campaigns.
Most definitely. So thank you so much, Jason, for coming along on the podcast. It's been lovely
thank you for
chatting
having
to
me.
you. Yeah,
you too.
I have to say that this module is absolutely fantastic. The production quality is excellent, and I can see myself running it either as a standalone adventure or using the encounters separately. It is really well thought out, and I think that any group of players will really enjoy it from beginning to end if they manage to get to the end. The links for the module are in the show notes, and if you're buying it from Amazon, please use the link provided, since this is Jason's affiliate link, so by using it, you are helping him too. Also, don't forget to contact him for your PDF version if you buy the module from Amazon. Remember, if you would like to contribute to the podcast, then why not drop me an email or message and let me know what you would like to cover. I'm always looking for reviews or interviews with people. So if you are interested, you can email me at inwils@gmail.com or send me a message on the various forums I frequent. Okay, next up, we welcome back Matt, the rules guru, who is going to be talking all about surprise. Over to you, Matt.
Hello, I'm Matt Eager of Old Bones Publishing, Matt E on the forums, and our topic for today is surprise attacks. If you are at all familiar with Mythras, or even its D100 predecessors like RuneQuest, you may already know that combat can be farcically deadly. Forget sterile resource attrition of a wealth of hit points. Here we have visceral details like impales, lopped off limbs, and bleeding out. Any time a character enters combat might be the last time. Thus we have another well-known concept in Mythras. Fair fights are for suckers. Exploit any advantage you can because survival may hinge on it. Which brings us to surprise attacks. Even in an already dangerous system, surprise is especially deadly. A character who surprises an opponent will probably win the fight, so it pays to understand how this tactic works. Before we begin, remember my customary disclaimer. I didn't write Mythras. I've just been invited to share my own understanding of how the rules are meant to be used in actual play. Surprise is discussed as a combat tactic on page 105 of the latest edition of the Core Mythras book. I'll go over those rules now, but I will slightly rephrase, reorder, and add my own remarks. Read along to see the differences. Surprise occurs when an unexpected attack is launched against an opponent unaware of the attacker's presence or intention. An ambush is an example of the former, while treacherously turning on an unsuspecting ally during conversation illustrates the latter. The effects of surprise are potent. The target suffers a penalty of -10 to initiative, which has further ramifications that may not be obvious. For the remainder of the first round, the target may not attack or perform any other offensive action. Until their turn in the initiative lineup arrives, the target cannot even defend. And the first attack on the target, if successful, gains a bonus special effect. As surprise can be so devastating, the target of such an attack should get a chance to detect and avoid the condition. In other games, this might be called a saving throw. For instance, an ambush might allow an opposed roll of perception versus stealth. For a betrayal, use insight versus deceit. Difficulty modifiers should be applied in situations where the target is hindered, such as being inebriated or dozing lightly. Conversely, a bonus should be applied if the target is suspicious or forewarned. If the target wins the opposed roll, then the effects of surprise are negated. And remember that, as always, you might want to involve passions in the opposed roll. So there's quite a bit to explore here. I'll refer to the two parties as surpriser and victim. It cannot be emphasized enough that the victim of a surprise attack is in a very bad way. It would be wise to spend a luck point to avoid becoming that victim. If one of the parties is a group rather than an individual, then the group's half of the saving throw, opposed roll, might be handled as a team roll, see page 51. A victim group's skill check might even be treated as a sorting roll, also on page 51. Perhaps some of the group might be surprised, but the rest not. As always, the Game Master will apply good judgment and rule accordingly. For those wishing to play a character along the lines of the assassin archetype, the rules as written specifically support this idiom. Such a character ought to be built with the assassination combat style trait, which allows access to the kill silently special effect that furthermore may only be used on surprised opponents. Such a character should also be built with a high stealth score, of course. Because the victim cannot attack during the first round, note that's the first round, not the first cycle. This means the surpriser is free to spend all action points on attacking, without worrying about saving to defend. This alone is very potent, aside from all of the other benefits for the surpriser. Some quick arithmetic. Remember that initiative is determined by adding a combatant's initiative bonus to the rolled result of 1d10. You can never roll higher than a 10 on a d10, but one of the effects of surprise is subtracting 10 from the victim's initiative. This means that if the surpriser has an initiative bonus greater than or equal to that of the victim, it is guaranteed that the surpriser will go first during each cycle, because the surpriser has to roll at least a 1. Even when the victim has the higher initiative bonus, the surpriser may still end up going first, depending on the difference between the fixed penalty of 10 and the rolled result for the victim. Never mind the rolled result for the surpriser. When the surpriser goes first, which will not be rare, there are further ramifications. When the surpriser acts first, the victim may find that they have nothing obvious to do on their turn. Remember, the victim may not take any offensive action for the entire first round, and in the first cycle, they may not even defend against the surpriser's initial attack. When the victim's turn finally comes in that first cycle, what is there to do? There are a few proactive actions that might make sense, but the player or games master might not be used to thinking about them. Considering the victim's dire situation, the best choice may be delay, to conserve the action point for defending in the next cycle rather than dithering. A victim who goes down this road may find themselves perpetually behind until the end of the round, when dithering could become inevitable. Thus, we see that in addition to the 4 listed effects of surprise, there may also be a de facto penalty of 1 dithered action point for the victim at the end of the first round, depending on circumstances. Perhaps the surpriser has fewer action points than the victim. If the surpriser runs out of action points, but the victim still has some to spend, in that first round, the victim still may not attack, and so will need to choose some other proactive action. This only amplifies the issue we just described, although it's always better to have more action points than fewer. In this situation, a good choice might be change range as the first step to disengaging, and those rules were covered in episode 24 of this podcast. What if the surpriser does not want to put down the victim? Does surprise have to be deadly? No. Use the compel surrender special effect if your games master agrees. See the caveat on page 97. In this special situation of surprise, the games master might even allow the use of that special effect as a proactive action, rather than insisting on an actual attack, if the surpriser does not want to inflict any damage. That idea is not in the rules as written, though. If you stick strictly to the rules in the book, you may still choose to pull the blow, see page 105, for half damage. Other useful non-lethal special effects include disarm opponent, take weapon, and trip opponent. Taking a broader view, what about surprise outside of physical combat? To enhance drama in non-combat situations, an inventive games master might like to extend the concept of surprise to social conflict or spirit combat. The rules for social conflict in the Mythras Companion do not include surprise, and neither do the rules for spirit combat in the core book. But they could. The surpriser might still win an extra special effect, and the victim might still only be allowed to counter rather than taking the offensive. Think outside the box. If it seems interesting, develop your own additional rules. In conclusion, surprise in Mythras can be deadly. Achieving surprise in a fight provides decisive advantages, so players should always be thinking before the fight about how to create favorable conditions. and how to avoid such trouble for their own characters. Surprise does not need to be deadly if killing is not the objective, and it might also be interesting to extend the concepts and rules for surprise beyond physical combat to other dramatic situations. Well, that's all of my time for today. I hope this brief discussion of surprise attacks has got you thinking about your own gameplay. My concluding advice is, understand these rules before your character enters the fray. Game on!
Well, I certainly understand more about surprise. Another rule that is going to make its way more into my campaigns. Players, beware. And that's it. Another episode of Mythras Matters completed. Don't forget you can check out all my content by following my YouTube channel and the campaign areas on World Anvil. I really appreciate your support, and do check out the Tapper Talk forums and the Discord. There are some great people there sharing their ideas within discussions. So until next time, have a great month of gaming, and I will chat to you all again in July. Until then, I hope that all your opposed rolls succeed and provide you with a well-deserved special. Thanks for listening, everyone. See ya. Bye. The content of this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, so please give appropriate credit if you are sharing or copying any part of this podcast. Thank you.